So, when Anne first sent me the invitation to participate in calendar variations, and she sent Capro's score, some other artists' work suggested themselves. I remembered that David Nash had made a work for an exhibition at the Serpentine Gallery. He called that work Sod Swap. It involved taking a circle of grass from his place in North Wales and inserting it into the grass outside the Serpentine, and then taking the displaced grass from the Serpentine back to North Wales. He also made drawings for this work, before it or after it. Another precedent is the work of Helen Mayer Harrison and Newton Harrison, and in particular their work Future Gardens, the Endangered Meadows of Europe. The Harrisons actually taught at the University of California at San Diego with Capro. Asked to make an installation for the roof of the museum in Bonn, they focused on meadows. Their work is all about ecology. They saved some sections of meadow from other parts of Germany. They saved them from places where they would have been built over. They were going to be built over by development. These sections of meadow were transported to Bonn and installed on the roof of the museum, with texts and images of their original locations, explaining the importance and value of meadows to the European biotope.
August the 4th, 2010. I had distributed Alan Capro's score calendar among the group of artists 2 months previously with instructions to respond by drawing. Now the purpose of our coming together was to enact this score. We chose to walk the score. This choice was a culmination of many journeys, individual and shared, that culminated in a few simple decisions. We threw a dice to determine who would go first, who would plant the first square, and by doing so create an equivalence between making a mark on a piece of paper and moving through this particular place and space. Reiko, an ecology artist, walked the first square through the long grass. She could not see her trace. She repeated it. One by one we each joined in at intervals, walking behind or alongside, until we were all in the square, walking round and round each other, impressing the long grass into a mark. By the afternoon our performance was seemingly effortless, intuitive, as if all that mattered was that very particular moment of experience. Being free in that moment somehow meant developing an equilibrium between our inner world experiences that had brought us to this point and the outer world we were sharing with others.
I was reading Capro's calendar by seeing it as divided into 2 distinct stanzas. The 2 stanzas act as mirrors of each other and contain reverse movements of each other. The first stanza, movement 1, taking root, spreading, integrating, marks a venturing out, and the second, movement 2, taking root, spreading, taking over, a return. And yet we do not know if the end point is the same as the starting point. When I began making these drawings, it was meditational of the act of planting. I had to hold my hand steady and controlled over an extended period of time in order to produce even marks. The repetitive dipping movement of the hand felt akin to planting something grain by grain. The drawings here are an exploration of one trajectory of possibility. If we begin to think what happens if we read Capro's score as reflecting a process of something taking root, spreading and growing. In what way does it grow? Does it grow below others, alongside others, or above others? Does it grow noticed or unnoticed? Does it grow being suppressed by or equal with or in dominance over others?
After preparing the spade for cutting turf in Cornwall, it rained a lot. On one hand, this was good, as it would soften the ground for cutting, but on the other hand, I thought it would be problematic working with wet hands, tools, and grass. With time running out, the night before I left for Scotland, between packing, I went into the garden close to the house and with an audience of 3, attempted to cut a square of turf the width of the spade. My idea was to cut 2 squares and exchange their places. My technique was poor. My mind was agitated with the clock ticking and the light fading, and I nearly massacred a piece of grass before passing the spade to the farmer I live with, who has spent many years digging through turf. I resigned myself to directing and documenting. The first turf reminded me of a slab of dark layered chocolate cake, sandwiched with black icing. Later, while travelling, I realised that the spot I had chosen was next to a site in the garden where we had frequently made bonfires to burn garden waste and other bits and pieces of rubbish. Nearly 3 years ago, for a number of reasons, I decided to destroy a lot of artwork on paper I had produced over the last 3 decades, including some of my student work from Grays.
Improvisation can come out of the unexpected. It is always triggered by something. As a method or tool in the arts, it often starts from a constraint freely chosen. In this way, musicians improvise on a melody or theme. Actors improvise on an emotion, an idea. Poets improvise on a form or a set of words. In art, we can improvise on a score, on the creation of another artist. A score obeys certain rules. It activates a certain behavior and is part of a certain domain, normally music. The score is already socially, culturally, and historically embedded. It represents a particular moment in the mores of musical interpretation. By having the potential to generate different responses that become unique, unrepeatable events, the score offers a field of possibilities to the artist that exceeds simple articulation or translation. The artist creates a certain thing.
I photographed moments of the burning, of course, and gathered a bottle of ashes when the embers cooled, which presently graces a shelf in my workspace. I wonder if the grass there has absorbed the remains of my artwork. I resolve on return to inspect this former bonfire area more closely, to see if I can detect any evidence that the grass has suffered, thrived, or been totally indifferent to the addition of the artwork to the soil.
I drove to Wooden Barn with a 5-foot podded aspen tree. After the drawing session, I drove back to Stonehaven, where I lived. I found 8 hawk moth caterpillars on the tree leaves. It was poplar hawk, UK indigenous moth. I kept them in my small greenhouse. The tree came from a nursery in Kintor, near the Don River in Aberdeenshire. I went back there to obtain 2 more aspen trees. I found 1 more caterpillar on one of the trees. About 2 weeks later, they pupated in the greenhouse. Wednesday, 18 August 2010. Until yesterday, they are very calm and friendly, but when they pupate, they become very touchy. They wiggle in response to any disturbance. They are unlike butterflies. They have to find a place in the soil or under the dead foliage. The beautiful bright green skin becomes almost filthy with the soil as they crawl to a safe place. I think they may be nervous because they can be eaten by other predators during this stage. I'm not sure how they understand that the greenhouse environment is safe for them. I wanted to know where the trees grow and how they grow there. I wanted to know where the trees grow and how they grow here. There is some ecological information about aspen and its propagation in Scotland on the internet. Aspen is a pioneer species in woodland succession. In this area, it grows with birch, juniper, hazel, Banchory, and rowan. When I looked at a map that shows the locations for aspen in Scotland, I noticed there is a dotted pattern between the Cairngorm Mountains and the city of Aberdeen. The dot seems to follow the River Dee. There is an empty area around Wooden Barn located between Mary Carter and Kincardine O'Neill. I started thinking about continuous dotted line, an aspen community that existed along the river and stream, between the mountains and the sea. And I also imagined popular hawk moths are always living with the tree quietly. If succession is a natural law, it will be always progress rather than the other way around. I see an empty area or a square of turf as a part of the progress. There seems to be 2 ways to intervene in the process for artists and other participants. 1, to be in the process physically and mindfully, and 2, to act upon the progress.